we're now going to go to the wonderful Luke Hodson, founder of NERDS, certainly a gentleman that I would love the opportunity to talk to. And he's going to be talking us through the street culture-inspired Gen Z youth report. Over to you, Luke.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for that warm introduction. My name's Luke. I set up NERDS, which was formerly known as Urban NERDS, in 2007. We were initially a club party brand that used to run big warehouse parties and set up various festivals across Europe, always with the ambition of providing a platform for underrepresented inner city sounds. We today are a youth and culture agency under the banner of NERDS, and what we deliver is insight, strategy, and connections. But why I've come to talk to you guys today, and what makes us famous, or our areas of expertise, is talking about and understanding, unearthing, and helping brands connect with what we have coined the street culture-inspired high street consumer, 16 to 24. We know, right, that this is a blind spot for the majority of brands, right? Despite it making up 65% of the total Gen Z cohort of 52 million across Europe, this is a consumer cohort which is traditionally lower middle to working class socioeconomic status. They prioritize on branded goods, and they're fueling the street culture phenomena that's dominating across Europe. And traditionally, right, people think of Gen Z as super progressive, all around gender fluidity, around making your passions pay, around having 3 to 4 different jobs. But what we found, and where we focus in at, is this audience where actually there's quite traditional values prevail. What I'm going to talk to you about today is Frontline, right? And Frontline is our research platform, which was specifically designed to help brands understand this consumer segment. And we have today 10,000 16 to 24-year-olds and counting as part of this digital platform that we use to test certain comms ideas, creative ideas, product ideas, to help brands get closer to this audience and win at a high street level. The report was built, I'm going to take you through, was built on 3,500 hours of consumer opinions. We are, as I said, a culture and a performance marketing agency. We work with some of the biggest and best brands in the world, right? And what we do is help them sell product to the high street consumer, the consumer cohort, which most brands either misunderstand, have some assumed truth around, which is inaccurate, and enables them to connect authentically and with integrity. We myth bust, yeah? We myth bust at some of the best brands in the world. So Frontline 2, the European Street Culture Inspired Youth Report. This is the European high street consumer. As I said, the ideas around gender fluidity, around shape-shifting ideas around identity is not necessarily true for the majority, right? There is definitely a cohort where that is particularly prevalent, which probably represents about 15 to 18% of Europe. But the majority is this, right? It's about conspicuous consumption. It's about using iconic brands overtly to shape and to project your chosen idea of identity. Right? This is a timeless style which has been consistent now since the 80s. It's about demonstrating that you have access to finance beyond the reality of your environment. And this is an audience where the company was born out of, right? And we're particularly passionate about giving this consumer cohort a voice and helping brands to funnel investment and to genuinely engage on behalf of the brands that they represent. So as I said, generic Z insights just aren't that useful if you're trying to understand the high street mass, right? And I think it's absolutely essential that you understand what this audience is aspiring to. And the first step that this audience is trying to achieve is this idea of projecting that I am part of street-inspired culture, striving to showcase their alignment with the dominant youth cultural expression. Is that the youth expression today across the world is street culture, right? Which is fueled by hip-hop culture, which ultimately is fueled by Afro-rooted culture. It's young people, or this cohort, is desperately trying to demonstrate and showcase that they are part of this world. And once that's achieved, they want to then showcase and communicate and signal the idea that they're getting paid, right? That material status is what they use as vehicles to demonstrate, like, cool, this is what I stand for, this is how I'm moving up, right? And the more frequency that they're able to buy and show certain products and brands, right, the more confident they feel. And ultimately, it comes from a place of low self-esteem and a need to fit in. It's about standing out whilst fitting in. I think, a great example of that would be JD Sports. So once that's achieved, they also move up to step 3, which is around social mobility. But there is a 10% then that uses creative status as a driver for drawing down confidence, and they share their creativity. So once they've demonstrated they're part of street culture, then it's about showing people that I'm getting a bit of money, or it's about saying, well, actually, do you know what? I have a more of a creative sense of identity and I want to express that. And so this audience, I wouldn't say is typically very creative. They're just starting to cycle out of that mindset. But the ideology continues up until 30. And even then it might not change, either, through self-actualization that people might start to strive for more. But ultimately, it's about showing people that you're moving up. It's about projecting that sense of upward mobility. And that is absolutely critical to this audience. So what are the motivations and mindset that are shaping these behaviors? Achievement. We found that traditional ideas of achievement still rule heavily, and they are connected to material gains. It's this idea of like champagne taste and beer money. It's about working incredibly hard to have the right footwear, the right outfit, drawing confidence from that. It's about fitting in. It's about the way I feel depends on how you see me. And the way that I believe you interpret me is by what I put on my body, which is why the idea of being a global brand and going after this progressive, liberal-minded kind of social consumer who actually is rejecting global brands is essentially wasting money. It's like, this is the audience that are making and breaking brands. When we actually tested, what does achievement mean? And as I said, it's about unlocking ways to get paid. And the top markers of achievement, which I think is was surprising, was this idea of making parents proud. It's about money. It's about their new job. Then it's about finishing education. But ultimately, it's about pursuing perceived ways to higher earnings. It's cash. It's not about an experience economy. It's about unlocking more money. So this idea that I work hard, so my spending has to demonstrate that I work hard. The idea of a very shallow idea of status that's very material. This isn't about having lots of money in the bank. It's about projecting a certain identity first. New trainers is the ultimate symbol of achievement. We tested that, and then it's new clothes. And all of these are about demonstrating that you are doing well, right? You have disposable cash. So do they care about where and how products are made? It's like this eco consideration or ideas around sustainability ultimately is just not true. It's like the pop trends that we're seeing once tested was actually quite misguided. There was a very low awareness around eco-friendly products, right? It's about 14%. The top priorities around purchasing footwear or clothing ultimately comes from design, then price, then quality. Number 10 was environmental factors. So, aesthetics first. Is this something that fits in with my culture, right? Is this a price point that I think is justifiable? And this audience is willing to spend 40% more on products that help project their chosen identity. And, they are the people that ultimately are fueling a lot of sales from the likes of Gucci, Louis Vuitton, D Squared, Kenzo. It'll be low price point products, but they are, as you can see from the photos, investing in overtly branded goods, right? And that's consistent across any touch point, whether it be a can of soft drink. Every purchase is fueled by the idea of, is this going to patch my identity? So number 10 was environmentally friendly. It's like, yes, people will report that eco-friendliness, eco and sustainability is important to them, but ultimately, this is the consumer that's fueling fast fashion, fueling the likes of Boohoo, right? It's about, quick purchases, but then designer goods for some of those more overt pieces of product. So getting the latest look is more important than getting eco clothes. It's all about me and making myself look good, and it's all about impressing friends over anything else. the only voices that they're hearing within this space or this idea of sustainability is key players. And one of the reasons that we tested is actually there's very little empathy for nature, right? It's limited. The engagement with nature is ultimately like local park, where I play football, going for where I walk the dog. It's like driving from A to B and potentially seeing some greenery, right? There's very little empathy. You know, nature is ultimately just the green stuff in the immediate environment. So the idea that you're going to be protective over that is short-sighted. So if they don't care about or don't value the environment, what do they value? Improving my personal situation first, then going on to bigger issues, right? If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's about shelter, it's about food, it's about sleep, right? And once you've attained that, then you can start to worry about ethics and more moral-focused decisions. But even then, environmental, like sustainability in the environment isn't the most important issue, because you've got to remember, like, life is incredibly challenging for this consumer, right? It's like, if you look at the average disposable income for a household across the UK, it's £22,000, right? The idea that they're going to be worried about polar caps melting in whatever, or the rainforest, is unrealistic, because the environments are so hostile, right? And there's so many more immediately challenging factors, including the idea of, like, you know, racism, like how is skin shade presented in ads, mental health, right? Increased difficult living conditions, drug, alcohol, like more fragmented society means there's more health issues. So this idea of me first and morals is a consistent sentiment that we found across Europe. When it comes to purchase consideration, personal appearance, surface is above everything else, right? New clothes first. If you gave this consumer €100, they're spending it on new clothes, right? Going out is just beyond their culture. You know, the idea of, you know, saving up for the weekend, spending on getting drunk and going to clubs is outmoded. It's just not how this audience is congregating or socializing. I think I've run out of time there, but if you've got any questions around this cohort, I think it's important to reach out. I feel like your common strategy has to include this mindset, right? This is driving cool. Cool comes from inner city areas, right? The street culture inspired consumer heavily adopts and appropriates what comes out of those areas. Unless your brand can find a way to complement that position, you're never going to win on the high street. So I think it's important to have resonance with that more progressive Gen Z mindset, but you simultaneously have to engage and create cultural equity and value with this audience, because this is the audience that's going to have the highest propensity to buy, or is going to be most willing to kind of like separate themselves from their cash. I think that's me. That's out.